It gives me a great honor and a privilege, it really does, to introduce Benjamin Engelman, who is a member of Beit Ariel for many years, living in Beit Vegan. Benjamin, let me ask, how long have you been in Israel?
Since 61.
61.
It's already over, approaching 60 years.
60 years. And you were born in Budapest, in Hungary?
Born in Budapest, that's correct.
And your family, they many generations in Hungary, in Budapest?
Oh, I can trace them back 3 generations, no, not more than that. Yes, they were living in two towns of Western Hungary. One was this Bonyhad. It's a relatively small town, but it's a Jewish connection. And then the other one, the other side, my mother's side, was in Papa. Papa was also in Western Hungary, an important town for rabbinics.
And your family they were religious, they were Orthodox?
They were Orthodox, yes. They were not what was called Haredim here, but it was Orthodox. I went to for my secondary school, I went to what is called Toiras Emes, Torat Emet, which was a split curriculum. In the morning we studied Gemara, and in the afternoon, secular studies.
And Benjamin, can I just, for our listeners out there, do you mind mentioning what year you were born?
Sorry?
Do you mind mentioning what year you were born, when you were born?
I was end of 1930.
1930.
I'm approaching 88.
And at Me'eve Stream till 120, plus VAT with Muslim Brocha. Okay. So Benjamin, do you remember growing up in Budapest?
To some extent, yes.
So,
that's better than things which happened with me 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, and growing up, your family lived in the Jewish quarter of Budapest?
No, we lived in another quarter which I may say, perhaps boastingly, it was an elite quarter, not the mainly Jewish quarter which people know because of the synagogue, Kazinci and Dom. We lived a little far away, but we went to school in that area, in the Jewish Orthodox area.
And growing up, did you have many Jewish friends, or you mixed with the local boys as well? And
surely Jewish friends, religious Jewish friends from the school and also from the neighborhood, the synagogue. Jewish friends. I don't think I can recall any non-Jewish friends, but that's just how things were.
But did you ever experience at a young age, any anti-Semitism?
I think I would say yes, but not in an extreme way. I'm speaking about pre-Shoah, pre-Holocaust era, when Jews still lived in a relatively normal manner. And the most extreme example of anti-Semitism was when going to school. I was tied up to a tree for a while, and by other children. I think it was an anti-Semitic motive beyond it, but I didn't suffer from that very much. But it's you ask, and so I say that things did happen, and of course during the Holocaust things were very much more extreme and life-threatening, and but it's a big story, not only for myself, but also for everyone who survived it. Everyone survived it as a story full of a book. And for example, I've got my cousin Judah Kraus, who wrote a book on this, and then there's some photos in it, including myself and my brother. And he tells the story to some large extent what happened to us because we were together. He, my younger brother and myself survived the last area of the Holocaust in Budapest.
So I'd like for our listeners and for people watching this, because it really is unbelievable to know what happened. And here we have an eyewitness, somebody who was there, which is really such an honor to speak to you. Really, it really is. Can I just ask, growing up, did you feel when the Second World War started in '39, when Poland was invaded, did you feel there's...
Hungary was not invaded.
I know, Hungary was much
Poland,
later. The German Wehrmacht went through Hungary.
Not really, not at that time.
No, but
it was in 44,
yeah.
In March 1944, that's it, 5 years later, that the German occupied Hungary.
I know, but didn't they go through as well to... or they sent forces also a little bit before...
The German forces
yeah.
part, but they were not so visible.
And did you feel growing up, if you want, like when you were a teenager, when you were 9, 10, 11, 12, when the war started, did it affect you in the very beginning, or life went on very normal in Budapest?
It did not affect me at that time. Not me and not my family, really, in those early war years. And that was really the trouble and the catastrophe of Hungarian Jews, that since they were not threatened at that early stage, they thought that they would be escaping anything like what the Polish and Russians...
Okay. So, Yuri, can I just ask, did your family or did anybody that you knew in your immediate family or friends know what was happening in Poland in the beginning of the war?
I don't think they knew, but of course I was a child. Yeah. And I don't think my parents knew. As a person, myself obviously was a child. They would not really speak about those horrible things. Sure. But I don't think they knew, and as I said, they were under the delusion, I should call it, that things will not happen to them.
Because actually they invaded very late in 44.
Sorry?
The Germans invaded very late. It was near the end of the war in 44.
That's correct, and that was a part of the how should I say, the horrible side of the story, that when they were already beaten and
they knew they were going to lose
and facing
defeat.
Their prime occupation was to sacrifice all Jews which are under their control.
It's one of the ironies of history, or that a nation that in order to try and save yourself, they would rather use their resources like the trains and the manpower to eliminate Jews than to save your own country. It's such a...
Exactly, and that works for a general, for the German upper level of the politics, but also individually for children, for youngsters in Hungary, Hungarian youngsters who were really, when they were really, the Russians were already surrounding Budapest. Their interest was really to kill as many Jews, and in a wanton, illogical manner as they could really do at that time.
Okay, and can I ask, do you remember when the Germans actually invaded and they came into Budapest?
When they came, as I said, in March of 44, I was playing football with my friends on the street of Hungary and of Budapest, and then there came my mentor came and said, "Robbie, you have to go home. The Germans invaded Hungary." And well, I suppose I made a few shots yet, but ultimately I got home, and perhaps my parents knew already, but because it was already broadcast on the radio.
And then what happened after that?
What happened after that? There were stages of restrictions how should I say, anti-Semitic laws. First of all, what happened to us in the family was that we had to leave our home and go live in a certain specific houses which had a yellow star on it, yellow magenta.
Was this part of a ghetto?
No, it was not the ghetto, but we were there, 4 families in a 4-room flat. From there, my father was taken away and did not return from Germany, although we have some information what happened to them.
Do you remember when your father was taken away?
Right, exactly. There was a call saying that all men above the age of, I suppose, 18 or under 60 or so, they should go down to the yard, to the courtyard, and then they were taken away. And while we tried to save him with what was called Schutzpassen are those documents which provided some immunity for Jews, but not in his case. He was still carried over to Germany, where he died later in Bergen-Belsen.
Okay, we'll discuss, because it's very important, the Schutzpass, and it's very important, those documents. But before, were you forced to wear a yellow star? Or
Sure.
That's was it very soon after the Germans invaded?
But I used the yellow star, and I'm trying to.
I know it's very difficult.
Also, the comic part of those experiences. Of course, it was and on the whole, it was a tragedy of immense proportions, but still there were certain little things. Mentioning your yellow star, then when I went to a football match, then I had the yellow star, but I tried to hide it, and so there were things which you could do, and it was perhaps dangerous, but in my case I managed to get away with it.
The house that you lived in before, did you manage to sell it, or you just had to leave?
At that stage, we had to leave. We had to leave. We went to this communal house, and from there we went to what was called a camp, which was under the aegis of the Swedish embassy. It was what's called Columbus Camp, that's what its name, and from there we were taken at the time, marched into the ghetto, which was in that area which I was referring to earlier. So we went there, and then we escaped from the ghetto, although it had wooden walls which were guarded and guarded by the Nazis, but they could be perhaps you could bribe them, and then we got out, and then we were my cousin, my brother, and myself. We were hiding in all sorts of places for a few days, probably of the order of 2 weeks. Finding night rests in bombed out houses where the which were left behind by non-Jews who were trying to escape the Russian army. So, and then at the stage where we could realize that we can't go on, then I managed to get with my two friends, my cousin and my brother, to the glass house which you mentioned in Voda Street, and it was a piece of great luck and siyata dishmaya for us that we managed to get into the house, because there were hundreds and hundreds of people crowding the entrance trying to get in. What happened is that there was an aircraft bombardment at that moment, and so people left the place, ran away, and the door was left open. Well, not open, but it was a possibility to contact some people inside. That's the way we got into the glass house.
So for our listeners, I just want to mention the glass house was like a sanctuary in a way. It was part of the Swiss. There was a Swiss a diplomat, Karl Lutz.
Quite.
And he, the goodness of his heart, one of the Chasidei Mutalam, he actually organized the Swiss. It was like a type of Swiss honorary passport or document.
Sure, yes.
And you managed to get one.
I managed to get into the house.
Into the house.
Yeah, sure. That's what we had those Schutzpasses, those documents.
How did you get the document?
Those were not very helpful, because some people knew me as a Jew, and they were shouting at me, Engelman, and I managed to run away from them. But and this document would not have saved me.
Can I ask, how did you manage to get the document?
Through the Zionist movement, who were photographing and distributing these documents and then putting in names, in fake names. For example, I was Engelman. For me, they called me Enegi, because that sounded more non-Jewish. And so, and we had that. But as I said, that was only a minor aid. It did not guarantee our survival.
Wow. And did your mother manage to get one as well?
My mother, for a woman, it was easier to survive, and she really had also a non-Jewish document, and she pretended to be a refugee from Transylvania. Transylvania was, of course, first captured by the Russians, and the Hungarians ran away, something a bit similar to what the Arabs did when we captured their territory in '48. So they ran away, and so there were many newcomers to Budapest, and she pretended to be one of them, and she survived. But it was a question of time.
And being in the glass house, it must have been very difficult, because there were literally so many Jews who took refuge there. Do you remember your time in the glass house? Do you remember?
I remember reasonably.
It was a factory, a glass factory. There was.
Well, I don't think it was any sign. I didn't see any sign of being a glass factory. The glass house was was owned by Weiss, who was a glass engroist, actually the same trade as my father was, but different. What was special there, that people were congested there in a room of this size. I suppose 15 or 16 people took refuge and slept on I don't know, on cardboards or on newspapers. But and there were daily quotas of, I think, one piece of bread, some sort of soup. So we survived, but it was really a great deed by those people who you mentioned,
Karl Lutz,
the Swiss Lutz, that this happened.
For our listeners, do you know what influenced Karl Lutz to do it?
Sorry?
Do you know who had a major influence on the Swiss diplomat? Who influenced him?
No.
Why did he do it? Or
he was in another world from me, in a different world.
Did you ever meet him?
No, but of course I know I looked at the book in his honor. I think I still have the book, or Honor of Lutz, and I'm reading books which discuss controversial aspect of the survival of Budapest Jewry, who was guilty, or who was in charge, who was helpful. This is an open question. I cannot say, I do not have any firm ideas what could have been done which was not done, or what should not have been done which was done.
That's true. And how long were you in the glass house? Or in the...
Not very long. I think it was about 3 weeks. Not very long.
And then what happened after the 3 weeks?
Afterwards, we heard the machine guns and and we saw the Russian soldiers coming in and taking away the watches of everyone who would get hold of. But of course, this was a minor sacrifice, because they saved our lives.
So this was literally...
when we reunited with my mother as a family, and of course my father did not come back, and then we went back to our original home, which was occupied by Hungarian refugees from Transylvania, but we managed to retain hold of our home. And then came the communist regime, and then most of us left Hungary for the West. In my case, was for Israel.
In what year did you come to Israel?
Sorry?
What year did you come to Israel?
When?
Yes, in which year?
In 61.
So you still, and it was...
Well, actually in 58. In 58 I went to I was a lecturer in the Technion, then I got married in 61, and then I went to MIT for a year or two, and then came back to my actual working place, which was the Atomic Energy Commission's Nachal Sorek establishment.
Can I just ask, because I'm sure I'm fascinated, and I know all our listeners would be incredibly interested to find out your reunion with your mother. It must have been extremely emotional when when Budapest was liberated by the Soviets, and then when you met your mother. I'm sure you remember it very vividly.
Sure, that's of course was a great event to be reunited with her.
To be reunited.
But it was a small stretch of time that we were separated and reunited, 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So it wasn't a long separation. But of course it was a great thing, and of course we we were desperate about the fate of my father, which was never made clear except in retrospect through the German documentation. So my father, he was always in the background, less for me than for my sister and for my brother, who were really very much throughout their life very despondent and emotionally charged by the loss of my father.
Yeah. And can I ask, did you have any other members of your family, uncles and aunts, that were deported? Or
A strange question.
I know it's a difficult question.
It's a strange question. Most of my uncles died, and most of my cousins died. Not all, but most of the cousins my age. And of course, really, every day I'm asking myself why I survived, or how did it happen that I survived? And my cousins were practically the same age. They did not return. So my family was devastated on both of my mother's and my father's side during those years. And of course, when people speak about what happened to the Holocaust, I cannot understand the question. There are these people whom I knew. They have names, they have identities, and they were no longer there. So.
I mean, when they are, and unfortunately, there are Holocaust deniers.
Yeah,
and unfortunately,
which I not only condemn, but I don't even understand what is meant. But of course, that's not. I don't go into that subject very deep because that's not. I don't think that needs to occupy me. What Holocaust deniers say. They are very far away from my concerns, and I think it holds for many of us here.
And it's going to be a very difficult question that I want to ask, but I think it's really important. Having been there and having experienced hell on earth, really, such a traumatic, that Lo Aleinu, to see the Germans invading your town, to see your father leaving and never coming back, that you kept your faith, that you kept your emunah. It's unbelievable. It really is remarkable.
I'm a religious Jew, and
your family kept.
Wouldn't say that by everyone. No, I think I'm a minority of my family who's Orthodox. Well, there are some, of course, and my children are, but my cousins, I don't think he would call himself an Orthodox Jew. Cannot speak about his beliefs.
Yeah.
That's a belief is another matter. People don't talk in family about these things, but most of them, I don't think they are. I'm not sure it's a question of. I'm not sure it was a question of the Holocaust. There are many reasons for people not being religious.
Yeah.
Apart from Holocaust, the question of emunah, belief, faith is the question. So of course,
it's very personal. It's a very personal.
Person, but that's a question between God and me, and I personally, I'm of the opinion that I cannot even approach an understanding of God's ways, not only regarding the Holocaust, but also in my particular field of physics, which are based on physical laws, which you can also, which I believe they are God-given, and you can always ask why was it like that? Why did God give them this? And I have no answer to that. So what I'm doing is what I'm thinking, what I'm, the way I approach this is that I cannot know the way of God, the ways of God.
Sure, there are really no words. I mean, to meet somebody who was there, who experienced it, and who has such incredible insight and faith, it really is. It's remarkable. You really are remarkable, and I'm not just saying it. It's such a schut. It's such an honor to meet you and to know you, and I really appreciate.
It's flattering, but of course.
But it's true.
Everyone has got his good points, and everyone has his failures and faults, and I'm not immune to them as well. So
I would just like to ask, because you came to Israel in the early 60s,
yes,
and a lot happened. We had the Engelman trial happening very soon after I think you came. The Engelman trial. Do you remember at all, or the Kastner trial? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember, but it did not really affect me very much, only as much as most Israelis in a newspaper. I think I was at the time near that place where he was tried, but of course the way this Holocaust was engineered it can hardly be.
It's like incomprehensible. You cannot understand.
Say, you go to right, you go to left.
With the finger, with a flick of a finger,
exactly.
Determine somebody's fate.
But of course, at that time I was relatively young and active in my field, and this was news, but it wasn't the news which affected me so much personally.
And can I ask, it's also I'm asking such difficult questions, but your views, because it's very topical and it's very controversial on Kastner, on the...
No, as I said, we have spoken about that. I said that I cannot judge him, not to his credit or to his debit. I cannot say that. I cannot say.
Okay. No, that's fair. It's some look.
What I can say is that, which is perhaps not very popular, that I found personally that the main people who were active in saving Jews, I'm speaking on a personal level, not in a governmental level, they were non-religious Zionists. Although we were religious and connected with religious organizations, they did not do much actively. But it's a personal issue, and I've read things which contradict this understanding. But my understanding personally was that I was saved by my family was saved by non-religious Zionist organization.
So I must just mention on this, we were in Nir Galim in Ashdod in the museum, which is mainly for Hungarian Jews and the memory of Hungarian Jewry. And it's interesting where they stress that there were a lot of the youth movements, religious, irreligious, all united in trying to give these passes, these life-saving passes. And it was the one time that all the youth movements together worked together to try and save other Yidden, to save other Jews.
Maybe.
So that was really something really nice to see, where they showed pictures of the different youth movements and the different organizations where they worked with each other. But it's been, I cannot tell you how I appreciate the just being in your presence and hearing your story. And I know it's very difficult to remember from the past, but I think you have such a positive outlook, which is you look at the glass half full and not half empty. And I think you're an inspiration for all of us, really. And I really want to thank you, and may you just have mazel and bracha and admei stream.
Thank you.
And it's really been a tremendous honor and a
I
privilege.
appreciate what you do, what you're doing. I'm sure that you don't get any personal benefit out of it.
Now, meeting you and meeting the people that I have the great zchut, the great honor to speak to and interview, there's nothing, you can never, it is so valuable. There's just nothing that can compare to that. So I really want to thank you, and I want to wish you a Shana Tova and a peaceful, happy and healthy.
Can I offer you something to drink?
All good, thank you so much. And just mazel and bracha, and thank you so very much.